Hello aspirants, welcome back to the daily news analysis of the Hindu. So this is a free initiative brought to you by Transform IAS Academy. In this video, we shall be looking into the articles which shall be extremely important for the civil service exam on the perspective of the prelims and the mains examination. So let us begin with our discussion for today. On the front page, we have this news which actually talks on the 4 arrested for the violence in Bulandshahr violence. So this was the news which was being even yesterday we saw, where a youth and a policeman had lost his life on the mob which had attacked. There were like nearly 400 mobs which were gathered on the rumors which was being spreading on the cow slaughter. So on limelight of it, now you have the NHRC, that's a National Human Rights Commission, which has sent a notice to the state government and the DGP over the incident to what had been taken place. On limelight of it, again in the section of the vigilance, which is also being repeated under the page 10 and also under the editorial column with respect to what kind of a protection and what else has to be done. So here the policeman itself has not been under the secured perspective. The policeman, even his life is under the danger when it comes to these kinds of mock outbreaks. On limelight of this, as we have already covered this, it becomes important for us to know on the National Human Rights Commission. So the basic details of that is that the National Human Rights Commission is a statutory body. So this is not a constitutional body. So understand very clearly, this is something which is called as an human rights, it is actually to be called as a statutory body and it is not a constitutional body. Get this right. And this was established in 1993. So this is under the legislation which was being enacted by the parliament, and here it is being named with respect to the Protection of the Human Rights Act 1931. So 1993-1931, this was the name to what it was being given, but in somewhere in 2006 the act was amended and it became to be called as an kind where it started having an holistic powers on taking with respect to the National Human Rights Commission. So what you have to know is that this is an act which has been enacted by the parliament. The first thing, earlier it used to be called as a Protection of a Human Rights Act, but now it is called as an NHRC, that's a National Human Rights Commission, which is a statutory body. Get this right, it is a statutory body. And it also becomes important for us to know about the composition of the commission as well. So this commission is actually a multi-member body. So this is actually consisting of the chairman and 4 members. So which means that it consisting of the chairman and it has 4 members. So here the chairman who has been called for the National Human Rights Commission, it should be a retired Chief Justice of India. And the members who should be serving, they should be serving as a retired judges of the Supreme Court or serving as a retired judges of the High Court. So get this right, we are talking about the multi-member body. It has a chairman and it has 4 members. The chairman should be a retired Chief Justice of India, and when it comes to the members, he should be serving a retired judges of the Supreme Court or a retired judges of the High Court. So 2 persons are being having an acknowledged practice with respect to the practical experiences. So the 2 persons should be eminent with respect to having a practical knowledge with respect to human rights. So this is with respect to 5 people who would be called as a commission body, and apart from that, there are apart from these full-time members, there are 4 ex officio members as well, and these 4 ex officio members are the chairman of the NHC, that is the National Commission for Minorities, the National Commission for SC/ST, the National Commission for ST/ST as we discussed, and National Commission for Women. So which means that the chairmans with respect to the National Commission for Minorities, SC/STs and Women. So these are the additional people who would be called as in part-time members or would be called as an ex officio members. So this is about the composition, which means that it's a multi-member body. It has 5 full-time members and 4 part-time members, and 5 full-time members would be a chairman and 4 members, and a part-time ex officio members would be the chairmen of the National Commission of Minority, SC/STs and the Women. So there's the basic details on that. So when it comes to the chairman and the members of the, it means that the chairman and the members have been appointed by the president and on the recommendation of 6 member committee, and the member committee consisting of the Prime Minister, as it says, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, the Leader of the Opposition in both the houses of the Parliament and the Central Home Minister, and furtherly a sitting judge of the Supreme Court and the sitting Chief Justice of India. So these are the people who would be under the aspects when it comes to this particular part. And apart from that, you should also know with respect, so when it comes to the chairman and the members, they hold the office for the term of 5 years. So here they hold the office for the term of 5 years or until the age of 70, which means that whichever is earlier. So it could be that he has been attempting for he's done the term for 5 years, or he has attained the age of 5 years. And the person, the chairman and the members have not been eligible for any further employment under the central or the state government. And apart from that, you should also know that the president can also remove the chairman and also the member from the NHRC purely based on if it is adjudicated on insolvency, or if he engages during his term for any paid salaries outside the duties, which means it's not supposed to have any office of the profit, or is unfit to continue the office by the reason of infirmity and mind or body, or if he is like an unsound mind and he stands to be declared by the competent court. So these are the grounds. And apart from that, if he is convicted and sentenced for the imprisonment for any of the offence, on all these charges, the President of India can actually remove the chairman and the member of the NHRC at any point of time. And also remember that the president can also remove the chairman and the members on the ground of proved misbehavior or incapacity. So these being the entire kind of qualifications to how the president would be removing him. And apart from that, the ground of misbehavior or incapacity can also be a ground where the chairman and the member can be removed. Understand, it is with respect to the removing the member and the chairman. So we are talking about the full members, and we are now talking about the ex officio chair, persons who has also been part of this particular NHRC. So this is about it. And when it comes to the salary, allowances and other conditions of the services of the chairman or the members, they have been determined by the central government. Get this right, the president is not determining, the parliament is not determining, it is the central government which should be determining the salaries and allowances and other conditions to what they have to be done. At any circumstances, they would not be able to have any disadvantage after his appointment. So they would not be able to reduce the amount on any circumstances after the person has been appointed. So these are some of the important, and the main aim for these kind of a provision is that they wanted to have securing autonomy, independence and impartiality in the functioning of the commission. The more they have been having an impartiality in the functioning of the commission, the work can be delivered in much more better aspects. So this entire part becomes extremely important on perspective of the UPSC exams. Just go through them, as these is a very important aspects from the statutory body. So this is important when perspective of the NHRC. So this plays a crucial role. So by this we'll move on to the next news item, which is on the Supreme Court gives a nod to reopen the IT case against the Gandhis. So this is with respect to the acquisition of the Associated Journals Limited. So this was something where it was a publisher of the National Herald newspaper. So this was based on the Young Indian part, and this company is actually the Congress President Miss Sonia Gandhi are the major stakeholders for this particular case, the National Herald case. So on limelight of it now, this particular case petition is being heard, and this is on the charges to the court has given a charges where the Supreme Court has now permitted the Income Tax Department to reopen the 2011 and 12 tax assessment case against the Congress President Rahul Gandhi and also the former party chief Sonia Gandhi in connection with the National Herald case. So to whatever the National Herald case is on to the Income Tax Department and the other forgery aspects. So on limelight of it now, the Supreme Court has given a permission for the IT department. So understand, it is for the IT department to reopen the 2011 and the 12 tax assessment case against the Gandhis. So this is that. So this particular order must be cleared by the court. So this is something which is being related to it, and the court should not restrain the Income Tax Department from implementing any of the assessment orders against the Gandhis and the others. So here the Income Tax Department can implement any of the orders to whatever they have to move on. So this is there. So there is a old kind of an issue which has been now started, or it has been come through the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court is trying to get the things done pertaining to the Supreme Court given a nod to reopen the IT case against the Gandhis. So this is there. So this was also prominently there in the front page, and under the front page again you had this news which talks on no ordinance on the temple, says the Pashwan. So here the government and the Prime Minister, they should be bound by the Constitution, which should not permit an ordinance to build a Ram temple in Ayodhya. So this is with respect to the Union Minister in the NDA Ali Ramavilas Paswan is saying that here the government and the ruling government, the BJP government and the Prime Minister, they have to bond by the constitution and they should not permit for any kind of an ordinance power where they wanted to build a Ram temple in Ayodhya. We know that this particular Ayodhya cases has been very long pending in the areas where it is a Babri Masjid issue and lot many other things has been associated, and this hearing has been postponed to 2019. So on limelight of it here, this person, Mr. Union Minister NDA Ali, has been stating that the government and the Prime Minister should not give any sort of an advice to the President to pass the ordinance on the building of the Ram temple in Ayodhya. So here this is a basic news, but what you have to know is that what is an ordinance, right? This particular thing is very important as this covers a very important part of your GS prelims for your polity as well as for your mains examination. So here the ordinance making power of the President, the important article which covers is 123, and this is a one which the Constitution has empowered the power to the President of the India, where he can promulgate an ordinance. So when he can promulgate an ordinance, this is during the recess of the Parliament. Whenever the Parliament is in recess, the President of the India can actually promulgate an ordinance under the Article 123. So these are the ordinance which have the same effect and also the same force as an act of the Parliament. To whatever the Parliament does it with respect to bill which has been passed from Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, on the same aspect the President can also pass this particular ordinance making bill. So this particular power is what this Mr. Paswan is saying that they should not use it. Why they should not use it? Because it has the same force and it also has the same effect as an act of the Parliament, but the nature would be of a temporary laws because it's subjected to the approval from the Parliament. So this information on that ordinance making power is been confined to the President. So the article what has been dedicated or power which has been constituted to the President is Article 123. So here the President uses this promulgating of the ordinance to recess the Parliament. So whenever the Parliament is under the recess, then he uses this power. But it has 4 limitations to what it has to be followed. So 4 limitation is that to whenever the President uses this ordinance making power, it should be only when both the houses of the Parliament are not in session. So you should know House of the Parliament is Lok Sabha and it is Rajya Sabha. So Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, whenever they are not there in the session, only then they would be able to promulgate this ordinance, or when both the houses are not in the session. This is the first condition, and the second condition is that he can make the ordinance only when he is satisfied. So who is satisfied? When the President has been satisfied on the situation, only then he will be able to promulgate this particular ordinance, and this is also subjected to the particular judicial review to understand if there is any malified issue on the President to what he uses as an ordinance part. So this is why it has been subjected to judicial review, is because here the President is having the power where he is part of the legislative powers. So he will be able to either summon, prorogue or even dissolve the session. So on limelight of it here, his particular ordinance making power, whenever he feels satisfied, it is also subjected to the judicial review to understand this person has not deliberately prorogued the session. And the third one is with respect to the ordinance making power is co-extensive as regards as the matters with respect the duration, because here when compared to the powers of the Parliament and other things with respect to how it becomes an act, it has the same powers, but the only thing is the duration matters. So apart from that, you should also know that there are certain important aspects, that is here the ordinance should be only on those subject to which the Parliament can make the laws. You should know that as per the 7th schedule there are 3 lists, the union list, state list and the concurrent list. So here the Parliament would be able to make on the laws as per the Parliament, where it has the control over the union list and also it has a control over the concurrent list, which means that the ordinance power of the President can also be confined to the union and the concurrent list alone, where it will not be able to have any statement when it comes to the state list, right? Under the state list it will not be able to do. And secondly is with respect to an ordinance is subjected to the same constitutional limitations as an act of the Parliament. So which means that to whatever the ordinance power the President has got it under 123 of the article, it will be having the same power, as it will not have any kind of an extraordinary powers, because here the ordinance would, if at all, if he has an extraordinary power, then he would be able to take out or abridge certain of the fundamental rights which has been under the Article 12. So here he will not be able to do it. So which means that the ordinance cannot abridge or take away any of the fundamental rights to what is being enshrined under Part 3 of the Constitution from Article 12 to Article 35. So at any point of time they would not be able to do this. So this is 3 important aspects. First 3 limitations he can do only when the House of the Parliament, one house or other house or either house are not there in the session. Secondly, if he is satisfied, only then he can pass the ordinance, Mr. President. And thirdly, he should abide the ordinance making power to the power of the Parliament alone, and this should also have the same constitutional limitation. And lastly is with respect to the every ordinance issued by the President during the recess of the Parliament, it should be laid before the House of the Parliament. So after the reassembly is done. Why the reassembly has to be done is because here the House, that's a Parliament of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they have to approve to whatever the ordinance the President has actually been passed. So if the President's ordinance power has been passed by the houses, if it has been approved, then it becomes an act. If per suppose, if the Parliament has not taken any actions, then it ceases to operate, or if they are not giving any kind of an approval, if the disapproval is done, the act would not be continued. So that is the reason we said it to be a temporary laws. So which means that the time limit for getting an approval from the House of the Parliament is just 6 weeks. Within 6 weeks from the reassembly of the Parliament, the President has to get the complete approval from the houses, and only then it becomes a permanent law. So this is something which related to the ordinance making power of the President, as it plays a very important role for your preliminary exam. So kindly get into more of touch on respected to the ordinance making power. And these are the 4 important limitations which has been confined to the President's ordinance making power. So just go through with this, as this has been there in your Lakshmikant. So just go through about that. So this is on this, but this let's move on to the next article. So here under page 5 you had an information on the Araku Valley. So this particular Araku Valley is actually in the Visakhapatnam districts in AP. So even this was prominently there in the news, like in the month of October as well, somewhere in the month, in the month of November. So this Araku Valley is very famous for the coffee cultivation. So this should be very well known that this is very good for the cultivations of the coffee. And here this is kind of an 2 major coffee cultivation in India has been very famous. One is the Arabica, another one is the Robusta. So these are the 2 important coffee which has been famous. And this particular cultivation of the coffee is actually in a mixed canopy, where you can find a large number of the evergreen leguminous tree. So this is something, a basic information. And apart from that, you should also know that this particular Araku Valley is being surrounded by the thick forest in the Eastern Ghats. So area where you can find them is actually into the Eastern Ghats. So this particular aspect has become very important for us to understand onto the Araku Valley, where it is very good coffee cultivated part. So it has been famous for it. So this is already in the earlier videos I have done. I am just trying to brush it out here. So you can get the locations of this Araku Valley and little more on perspective of your coffee cultivation. So this becomes important. So just go through about that. So on the page 7 we have this news which talks on the Disability Act states going slow on rollout, says the study. So this was a study which was being conducted by the DRIF, that is a Disability Rights Indian Foundation, on the implementation of the rights of the Persons with Disability Act across 24 states. So this is something where a study was being conducted with respect to the Districts Rights India Foundation, where understanding to how well the rights of the Persons with Disability Act is actually been implemented. So the basic information to what you have to know is that this particular bill was being passed by the Lok Sabha in 2016. So this particular bill is mainly focusing on to the people who have been having a disability over the time, and this disability is actually been increased, and this has been having almost like 21 disability sectors to what is being covered under this 2016 Disabilities Act. So the main important things what would be covered is blindness, low vision, leprosy cured, or the locomotor disability of the dwarfism, or intellectual disability, mental illness, autism, cerebral palsy or Parkinson's disease, thalassemia or multiple sclerosis, specific learning disabilities, chronic neurological disorders, or the muscular dystrophy. So some to be named. So these were the 21 kinds of an important disabilities which has been listed as per this, and with respect to it they had to make a good number of coverage in terms of the state and ensure that these people are being getting over the proper benefits to what has been done under RPWD Act. But what the study has been now revealed is that it is more than half of them of the state have not as per the notification to whatever is being done, they have not specified or they have not set up any of these particular act or a department which really has to help the people with the disabilities. This is the first thing. So the 10 states which has been including, as per the survey, they have notified the state rules. So they have come up with the state rules. So the deadline which is to be taken into consideration by the states has been missed out here. They have not done to whatever it has been said. So the status for the implementation of the states with the persons of the disabilities, RPD Act 2016, 2 years after which came into force. So it has not been done. The number of states and the UTs that have been responded out of 24 states is just 60, out of 29 states is just 24, only accounting for 67%. And here the states have not notified the state rules. With respect to 58% of them are not being done with it. So this is something very important. And apart from that, the states and the UTs without, they're not having any state advisory board. This particular RPWD Act had also given a kind of information that they have to set up with the state advisory board, and only 50% of them have done it and 50% has not been done, or they don't have a state advisory board. And the states and the union territories, they do not, without the state commissioners for the persons with the disabilities, which means that 37% of them, they do not even have the commissioners for the persons with the disabilities. And the states that do not have or not allocated the state funds is with respect to 79 people. So these are the kinds of an information which has been given, where to whatever they have to come with respect to implementing this kind of an RPWD Act, they have not done it, and these are the important areas where the percentage level has been given. So these are the ones to what the Act had actually wanted the state to implement, but none of the state has been implemented in a proper aspects. And the state without notified special codes is 58%, and the codes, the states are also not come up with any of the special codes for dealing with these kinds of disabilities. So the percentage what is remained is 58, and the states without the specific public prosecutors. So this bill is also been highlighting to have a public prosecutor, and 87% of them have not been appointed as a public prosecutor. So these are the main important things which tells that this particular kinds of a notification what has been given by the RPWD Act, they had to do it within 6 months of the notification, but it's been like almost 2 years, but still they have not come up with any of these. So that is the most pathetic issue out here. So they have to look on to what has to be done, and this is a survey actually which has been conducted by the Disability Rights India Foundation in collaboration with the National Center for the Promotion of Employment for Disabled People and the National Committee on the Rights of the Persons with the Disabilities. So these are the main important things which has to be taken into consideration. So which means that if there is any questions pertaining to the Disabilities Act, the collaboration was being done with respect to these part, that is NCP, EDP and the NCRPD. And apart from that, what you have to know is that in terms of having a good number of responding to the study was Madhya Pradesh, which had ranked the highest, followed by Odisha, Meghalaya and Himachal, and the most least part of the Nicobar, in terms of having the lowest rank is Andaman and Nicobar and Jammu and Kashmir. So this is about it. So basically this is with respect to the one which talks on to the Disabilities Act, the states which is going on a slow rollout. They're not happening, or they're not doing the things which has to be executed in a faster aspect. So this is about it. So whatever is being done here, this is just a basic, so you can just go through with it and just go through with this particular aspect. You get the details in detail. So the next news item is on page 10, which is accounting the methods of the climate fund questioned. So this is with respect to the climate fund, which has been actually questioned with respect to how can this be possible. So here it is a finance ministry, they have come up with an issuing a sort of an discussion paper. So this particular discussion paper is actually criticized the accounting methods to what it has been used by the developing countries to report how much of the money they have given so far to the developing countries to address the climate change. So this is with respect to the kind of an issue, or to the 2010 agreement in Cancun, to whatever decided. They were decided that there should be an availability of $100 billion to the developing countries, so that they would be able to address with the climate changes to whatever has been happening out there. So on limelight of it, here the other countries, they had to come up, they had to, in sense the developed countries, they had to give the amount to the developing countries. So as per the amount to whatever the developed countries are stating that they have given to the developing countries, so here the Finance Ministry of India has come up with this discussion paper, and it said that The method how they're calculating that the amount, how much of the amount they've given to the developing countries to address the climate change is something where it has been criticized and it is not holding the essence of the calculation. So this is actually with respect to the flow of the climate finance, how well it has been happening, and this has become a controversy where they have to discuss in the Katowice, which is in Poland, where the discussion which is going to happen on the COP, that's a conference of parties which is going to held on, and here they would also come on understanding with respectation to what they have been promised or what they have to do it as per the Paris Agreement of 2015. So to whatever year the developed countries are stating is that by 2013 and 14 they have almost reached the finance level of $41 billion per year in 2017 and 14. But here in 2015 India has also disputed on the figure, telling that they have not shelled out so much of the amount for the developing countries. It is a fake kind of an calculation to what the developed countries have been doing. So apart from whatever they have been saying 41 billion, it was only 2.2 billion is what they had been shelled out. And in 2017 also the number also had a similar story, where they were telling that they had been pledged only 12% of the total pledges of the climate change have actually been met for materializing for the disbursement. So when the developing countries had to do the disbursement, so far they have done only for 12% to whatever the claim they telling to the earlier part. They have not met to what they have to do it on. So here it's been clearly said that the definition on addressing with the climate change or the climate finance in the UNFCCC has remained an imprecise and incomplete, so that they are not having any clarity whether the developed countries are really committed to the provident funds, or they are really committed to provide the funds which actually meant for the fund which has to be committed on intending the recipients, that is a developing country, so that they would be actually addressing with the climate change. So this particular amount to whatever the developed countries are stating that they have given it, and India has been coming up with this particular discussion paper, and it's made it clear that they have actually not given to whatever it's been promised. Actually it's been lesser, very far lesser. So the total pledges to the Green Climate Fund, that's the largest multilateral fund, has been there. So it was merely of only $10.3 billion. So this is something which is the total climate finance which has been flowed into the mitigation and nothing more than that. So this is what has been said, but here the claim was almost like 41 billion per year in 2013-14. So this was something of the contradictory to what has been posed out here. And apart from that, you should also know that the growth of the report in the climatic specific finance, it is slowed down to what they had it in the peak of 2015-14. Right now it has been slowed down from 24% to 14% between 2015 and 16. So within a year it has dropped from 24% to 14%, where to whatever the specific finance on addressing the climate growth is actually been having a drip. So this paper notes which has been quoting by the report of the Finance Committee of the UN that had managed with the climatic affairs. So this is something related to that. So based on these particular aspects here, the Finance Ministry has come up with a discussion paper, and it has made it clear how the calculations have actually gone wrong on allotting the amount to the developing countries by the developed countries. So this becomes a core issue for them to discuss under Poland COP Summit of 24, which is going to take part in Poland. So this is on that. So this is just a basic. So it is like with respect to a contradiction to what is being shown in this particular article with respect to the amount what the developed countries are being telling it's been shelled out, and what the developing countries are saying that it is not. So this is about the discussion paper. So this is actually the Finance Committee of the UN has come up with the managing with the climate affairs part. So this is on that. And here under the page 10 again you had this news which talks on India US will sort out the sanctions waiver matters. So this is with respect to India and USA are now planning to sort out with the issues around the US sanctions waiver which has been related to India, where it has been purchased with S-400 Triumph missile defense system from Russia. So last month actually India had procured with respect to S-400 defense missile from Russia. So this was against the US sanction, to what the US had given the sanction under the CAATSA, that's countering America's adversaries through the Sanctions Act under the NDAA of the financial year 19. So on liability of it is what now India and USA have come together, and they wanted to sort the issues as this particular waiver to whatever the related waiver they wanted to get it on. So on liability of it is what the US Secretary has been saying that is actually the US Secretary of Defense, Jim Mattis. He's been telling that this might be coming to an end, so we would be also helping out, will ensure to what has to be done. So, and after that the exchange of talks happened between the Nirmala Sitharaman, she is actually Defense Minister of India, along with the US Secretary of Defense, Mr. Jim Mattis. And here he also highlighted to the White House. Even yesterday we saw that here the White House had given a letter to Pakistan with respect to addressing the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, on supporting to have a peace talks in the Afghanistan. So on limelight of it, he also ensured that it is everyone they are been on the board, where they are supporting for the United Nations, support the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, want to support the President Ghani in all means, so that they would be able to maintain a peace and make a better world here. So that is the main concept to what is being discussed out here. So this was something a forward part, where now the Defense Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has gone to the US on having a confirmation to what kind of support they would be giving in terms of US sanction waiver on the Russia's purchase of S-400. So this is on that. So this was again repeatedly there in the news. Is what you have to do is you have to know to the earlier news as to what has been happened, as this is a news of the continuation. As the sanction is being done, now India has been forward to understand what can be done. So this is about it. So under page 11 you had this news which talks on India's Bhutan Hydel project ready. So this is with respect to the Manjeduk kind of a power project which has been between India and Bhutan. So this particular project is actually, you can see this particular location out here. So it's a tunnel Matri part, which is almost like 8,800 meters. So this is an head-race tunnel. So head-race tunnel is out here, and you have the Tongsa, which is almost like 2,230. So here is the dam to what they have been talking on. So this is the area. So the basic details about this is that they actually wanted to have like almost 720 megawatt Mangdechuk hydro electric project, which is being actually constructed in this particular area, that is in Trongsa. So Trongsa, which is a district of Bhutan. So in this particular area, so this particular hydropower project is actually, as we discussed, it's a 720, almost like 720 megawatt run-off river power plant, which is actually being built onto the Mangjechu river in Trongsa. So there is a river which is of this particular name. So I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing wrong. Mangjechu river. So this is actually in the central Bhutan. So actually this particular is it's been constituted by the Indian government and the royal government of Bhutan, where actually together both of them are been developing this particular project. So this particular one is actually, this particular project, to whatever we were talking, the Manjetu power project is one of the 10 hydroelectric projects which has been planned under the royal government government of the Bhutan's initiative to generate almost like 10,000 megawatt. So this should be done by 2020, by the next 2 consecutive years, and the support would be given by the government of India. And this particular Mangdechu power project is one such of the 10 projects to what is being sanctioned by the royal government of Bhutan's initiative to generate almost like 10,000 megawatt hydropower by 2020. So this is on that. So this project is actually been estimated to generate 2,923 gigawatts of the electricity, and this is almost if I'm not wrong, like 2.2 million tons of the carbon dioxide a year from the atmosphere. So it can offset to whatever the carbon dioxide is being moving towards the atmosphere. So this is on that. On limelight of it is what they are saying, that this particular project, to what India and Bhutan have come together, it's been expected to commission with respect, which has been commissioned a major hydropower project in Bhutan, which is going to happen in the coming weeks. So this is a statement to what is being coming from the Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale, and here he also ensured that to whatever the relations India and Bhutan has been having now, it's in cooperation with the hydropower sector, was a sign of a strength and also the time tested ties between both the countries, that is India and Bhutan. So this year they're actually having the commissioning of the 750, I said that it is almost like 10,000 part as of now. 750 megawatt Mangjedu hydropower project is being done. Hopefully it will be commissioned out here within this particular month, and this is something which you have to know in on a surface level. So if there's any questions on pertaining to Trongsa river, which is the area districts where you have the Mangjetu river, on the Mangjetu river you have this Mangetu hydropower project, and this power project is between India and Bhutan. So you should know who is the one which has been taken or backed with this project is actually the BEL, the Bharat Heavy Electrical Limited, and it will be almost implemented on the bilateral basis. So the whatever the ties India and Bhutan have been having right now, it is purely on the bilateral basis, and this bilateral relations between India and Bhutan would be having with the proper aspects. So this particular statement was actually being given by the Foreign Secretary under the kind of a conference what had happened under the Indian Council of the World Affairs. And Indian Council of the World Affairs, you can see out here. So Indian Council of the World Affairs, ICWA. So this is actually a think tank of New Delhi, which is actually been established in 1943. So this is actually mainly devoted, we are talking about the ICWA, it's mainly devoted to the international relations and the foreign affairs. So this was something done by the Act of Parliament, and over the time it was being institutional to be as a national importance by 2011. So the person, the Vice President of India, that is Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, so he is the person who is called as an ex officio president of the ICWA, that's the Indian Council of the World Affairs. And apart from that, the Minister of the External Affairs is the Vice President of this particular ICWA. So these are basic details to what you have to know. Basically, ICWA is a think tank of the Delhi, New Delhi, and it has been established in 1943, and main important aspects of the work or the studies for the international relations and also the foreign affairs. So this is on that. So we have discussed three aspects of this. First is with respect to what is this particular project and the ties with Bhutan and India, the first thing. And secondly, we discussed with respect to the present project, what is been under the Mangetu power project. And thirdly, we discussed with respect to the concept of the Indian Council of the World Affairs. So this becomes the issue on the India's power, Bhutan hydel project, which has been ready. So this is on that. And here under page 12 under the world column, you have this: US can't prevent the export of Iran oil. So this is like the Iran President Mr. Hassan Rouhani is being defiant and is against the US sanctions. As we know, the US sanctions has been reimposed on the Iran. So whatever they have been taken back in 2015, it's been reimposed. On limelight of it is what the Iran's president has been saying, that he would be renewing his threat to cut off the international oil sales from Gulf. So here the America should know that it will be almost taking back to whatever the international oil sales would be purchased from the Gulf area. So if that is being done, then there would be a complete downturn which would be happening. So since 1980, the Iran has repeatedly said that it would blockade the Gulf in the response to the international pressure, but has never carried out the threat so far. But now, to whatever it's born, it was saying that it would become a blockade to the Gulf, so it would be expecting to impose this. So this is that. It's just a it's Iran saying that it will not be afraid to whatever US is being doing, and it can also know how to prevent it and also know how to get it done. So on limelight of it, it is also saying that it will be renewing its threat to cut off the international oil sales from the Gulf. So this one is again a continuation news which has been there. So you can just note to this. And again, whether it's an hyperinflation and unemployment to whatever it is, it will not be able to do anything when it comes to Iran. So this was something what Mr. Iranian President Hassan has to tell to US sanctions and their president out there. So this is about it. Just go through them, that's it. So under page 13, you had this news which talks on the RBI to inject 10,000 crores via the open market operations tomorrow. So we know that this was with respect to the Reserve Bank of India, where it has been ready to infuse the 10,000 crores to the open market operations. So open market operations is nothing but where the RBI would be outrightly purchasing the government securities. By purchasing the government securities, the banks would be having an infusing of the funds, which means that there would be inflows of the funds would be ready. So by tomorrow this OMO operations would get started. So this is about it. So you have to know more on the OMO, that is open market operation, and this becomes very important as this has been repeatedly there in the news. You can expect a question for your preliminary under GS paper, and also anything pertaining to your general studies paper 3 as well. So this is one part. And here you have the device norms for the payment apps, the RBI told. So this is with respect to the data protection bill which has been came into effect in 2018. So this particular bill which has been ready or it has been stored, it's basically talking on to the protections of the data which has been taken by the other service providers. So here this particular news items is on talking on to the Ministry of the Electronics and the Information Technology, that's MIT, has now proposed the RBI. So this ministry has proposed the RBI to come up with the regulations to oversee the collections, the usage, the sharing of data by the payment service providers, even as the government is expediting the discussions on the draft personal data protection bill. So even though it has been having a discussions on to having a draft protection data bill, on lamlet of it, here the electronics has been given the proposal to the RBI to oversee how are these people actually collecting, using and also sharing the data of the payment services which has been provided. So understand, this is a proposal what the ministry has given to the RBI to look into this particular issue. So they actually call it to be as in sensitive data. Why is this particular thing came into concern was that this was a concern which was been raised by the NCSC, that's a National Cyber Security Coordinator, over the collection and the storage of the sensitive personal data by the payment service providers. So these payment service providers actually collect the personal data of the people either through the Google test or the WhatsApp or by the payment ATMs. So when they are taking the data of these particular aspects, and what happens to their data, is it really being maintained or not? So this was something the NSC pointed out, that there are no agreement between the National Payment Corporation of India, the banks and the applications that are actually providing the payment services. So when these people are able to collect with those kind of information, but there is no any kind of an agreement to what they have been signed with the National Payment Corporation of India, the banks, or to any of the service providers to whatever they are doing it. Additionally, he also highlighted that there is no liability for the NPCI and the payment service providers, how it can be done. And now taking these into consideration, it has become a need that the regulations on the data flow of the financial transactions have to be pointed, and they have to be kept in a proper interest and ensure that the consumers' interest have not been proliferated, not been leaked or not been shared, because as this becomes a very sensitive data. So when all these people are taking the informations from the consumers, it has to ensure that it is not going wrong with our particular consumers. So this is what the concern toward the National Cyber Security Coordinator had given a recommendation on to the Ministry of Electronic and Information Technology. On lamlet of it, the ministry has given a proposal to the RBI to look into the coverage of the collections, the usage and the sharing of the data for the same. And apart from that, the NSSC also recommended that it is a need to scrutinize all aspects of the relations with respect to either legal, technical or with respect to financial between all the stakeholders in the payments ecosystem. So the need is that they need to scrutinize from all aspects, let's say whether it's a legal or a technical or a financial aspects. So this has been there, and as on lamlet of this is what the NCSC had given a recommendation, and the support is being taken by the Ministry of the part, and it has also suggested that the RBI should look into these particular aspects and come up with the proper regulations on how it is being collected, the usage, and how they have to share the data. On lamlet of this, in this particular year, April, the RBI had also directed the payment providers to ensure that the data relating to the payment systems operated by them was stored only in India. So this came into effect by October 2016. So Amazon was one such things which they have actually accepted that they would be having a storage of the informations back in India. So here the RBI had given that at least one document of it has to be stayed in India. So the localization of the data has to be maintained in India. So that is on that. So this has been there, but any which ways the draft personal data protection bill is under the scrutiny right now. It has still not been confirmed, the bill, but any which ways the the kind of localizations of it, or few kind of companies have agreed to have it in India itself. So that is on this. So this becomes very important on the data protection bill which has to be introduced, and also with respect to the payment providers, the documents being not ready or they don't have any kind of agreements or obligations, or the safety of the consumers information is not been guaranteed out here. So this is about it. So under the page 14 you had this news which talks on the which Fitch retains a negative outlook for the banks on the weak capital. So this is Fitch is nothing but a rating agency which is saying that it has given a negative outlook for the Indian banks because of the weak capital, because the banks are not having a capital as they have been indulged with the NPAs and also with the other kinds of an issues which has been repeatedly there in the news. And they also said that the public sector lenders would need more capital than what the center has planned to infuse right now. So to whatever the center has been planned to infuse, the amount would not be sufficient, but the public sector banks, they required even more and higher amount to come out of the situations, and only then they would be able to move on to the positive part. Otherwise, as of now, the public sector banks are under the negative outlook. So this is actually reflecting the ongoing struggle of the state banks with a weak core capitalization and also the rising macro headwinds and the poor profitability. So they're not being able to make profit as the amount has not been there, or the flow of the amount is not being seen in a larger extent. To whatever the estimated is being done by the Fitch, the banks would require at least $38 billion by 2019. So to have a sufficient amount to meet the Basel III norms and also to have a capital standards. So at least to have a 65 coverages of the NPAs, but to whatever the government has been planning right now to infuse, this is not going to be sufficient when it comes to the banking sector where they have to get revitalized. So they are also talking that they have to at least inject $11 billion this financial year, and additional of $6 billion, almost like 17, accompanied with the equity issuance where they have to support by selling the sales and other sources to comply with the minimum Basel III norms. If they are not doing it, this particular amount to whatever is being given would not be sufficient for the banks to come out of the situations to what has been tangled and been struggling to even capitalize for the same. So, and they also made a comparison between the bank of public sector and the private sector. So here the private sector, they are having a recovery faster compared to the state banks. So this is the another important information to what is being given. So basically this particular Fitch is saying that the negative outlook is being given for the banks because they have been completely weaker, and they have been struggling when it comes to the core capitalization and the amid tensions which has been happening right now, and infusions will definitely not help them to come out of the situation. So this is that. So again, this particular issue I am being very fast in saying them because as this is several times we have discussed this. So same issue has been there, only the name, the Fitch is what has been saying the same thing again. So this is on that. So under page 18, under the life column, you had this giant tortoise may offer clues to a long life. So this is with respect to the Galapagos giant tortoise, which is actually posing a genetic variant which has been linked to the DNA repair or immune response and the cancer suppression. So to whatever the Galapagos giant tortoise you can see out here, so this is actually been linked to the DNA repair to the immune systems, and also the cancer suppression can be done. So this actually gives a clues for the longevity. So the study has been conducting on that. So especially there are two such tortoises where the genome sequencing is being done by the researchers. So one is the lonesome George, and the last known member of the subspecies of the Geochilion nigra 1, and it actually died back in 2012. And they also detected the lineage specific variants where it has been affecting with the DNA repair genes or inflammatory mediators or genes related to cancer development. So the study is being done so that when they do this genomic study, they would understand so how they would be able to suppress the cancer. So this is on that. That's it. Once the study has been done for a long time, then you get the other details for the same. And one information out here, we can see that the giant tortoise, which can live for 100 years in captivity, arrived in the region 3 to 4 million years ago. So this is like they almost lived for 100 years, which means that they have a good DNA repair, the immune response has been pretty good, and also the cancer suppressions. So this is on that. And here you have the last news which talks on the patents granted by India up by 50% in 2017. So this is like the number of patents to what India has been granted, and to whatever it has been granted, it has been increased almost and shot up to 50% in 2017. So this was a kind of an a trend or a report which has been given by the WIPO, that is the United Nations World Intellectual Property Organization. So this is the one which is purely dedicated to the patent rights. So on limelight of it is what is been stating that India has been shot up with 50% in 2015. So this particular patents which has been granted by India has increased from 8,248 in 2016 to 12,387 last year. As these numbers are not important, so you just know that this patent report was been released by the WIPO's World Intellectual Property Indicator Report 2018, which has been released in Geneva. So that is important. And apart from that, the WIPO also said that the steep increase was being with respected to giving the patent rights or granted to the patents to the foreigners. So this was accounting to almost 85% of the total increase. So most of the foreigners have also got it. So that is one important aspect out here. And comparatively in 2016, there are 1,115 who had actually got it, the patent or the entities on the domestic individuals, and 7,133 to the foreigners. So this has been there, but on to be very crisp on it, globally there are 1.4 million patents which was been granted in 2017. So here the IPR, that's intellectual property rights, is gaining the momentum over the time, and it is being recognized so that it will be able to get the young talent with a new innovation and at the same time give them the patent rights to whatever they have been innovated. So this is on that. And you should also know which is a country which is actually being leading. So the world which are actually led with a high number of granted patents is China with almost like 4,20,144, and it has been followed by USA with 3,18,823. So this is on that. And here the draft on the Personal Data Protection Bill 2018. So this is actually smoothed out down. So this is on to the issue to what we discussed earlierly. So this is something where the Indian citizens, they have to be processed only on a data centers which has been located within the country. So any personal data may be transferred outside India while transferring, but local data centers has to be set up in India, and that data center should have the details of the data which has been protected. So at least one copy of the data will need to be stored in India, and this proposal is to be termed as regressive and the trade barriers by the experts. So to whatever the data protection bill, whatever the India has been come up right now, most of the experts say that they criticize this move, calling to be regressive and trade barrier. So this has been there. Actually this we saw out here with respect to payment providers. So this news has been gone out here. There is a basic information to what you have to know on the data protection bill. So that's it. So these were the important ones. So by this we have come to an end of this video. So these were the important articles for the day. We hope this video will help you in your preparations, and also remember, only you can change your life and no one can do it for you. So work hard until you accomplish. Thank you and have a nice day.